Today we've got a great story of a revenge potato. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I one-upped my snobby cousin's phone model. I, male 16, have a cousin, female 16, who has always looked down on me and my family. We don't have much money and can't afford things like holidays or anything expensive. She's always gotten everything she could ever want from her parents. We grew up together and she's made fun of me for this my whole life, even though it shouldn't matter in the slightest. When I was 14, my phone had pretty much stopped working. The screen would freeze and ghost tap often, as well as needing to restart to charge. I saved for a new phone for a year. At the end of the year, I researched a phone to buy. I like to take pictures, so a good camera was important to me. I decided I wanted an iPhone 13 Pro Max, same model as my cousin. I had never had an iPhone before. This was around the time the iPhone 14 released. I had a look but couldn't afford anything more than the standard model, so decided not to as they're basically the same phone. I very proudly told her I'd saved enough to get a new phone, and she asked me what model I was thinking of. I told her I was planning to buy the 13 Pro Max. She did that thing where she scoffed at the same time as holding a laugh while looking me up and down. I hadn't felt bothered about her doing this for years, but for some reason this ticked me off so much. When ordering my phone, I decided to buy the 14. Not because it's better, but because I knew it would irritate her, and it was only a 10 British pound difference. It arrived a week later, and when she'd seen it, she looked ticked. She spent a while trying to convince me her phone is somehow better. There's no difference. She didn't speak to me for a while over a phone. Cousin smashed her so her dad would buy her the 15. She did not get the 15. I've still got my phone over a year later and she's going strong. Best purchase ever. It's more petty than revenge, but I'm just wondering, is OP cousins with Veruca salt? Just pure distilled, I want it now energy. I want to be better than everybody and nobody can have anything better than I do. Snoo Cauliflowers 9874 wrote, "It seems your cousin likes to hold things over your head. Perhaps it makes her feel bigger and better. She sounds like an insecure bully who's not happy unless she's building herself up at other people's expense. You're young, but one thing you need to learn is that life is short. And don't waste your time around toxic people, unless you're getting paid for that crap, such as a job. I feel proud for you that you were able to earn enough money, as these phones are quite expensive. I have a 13 myself, and I'm keeping it until it absolutely dies, just like my last iPhone. I'm like that with cars too. OP, try to remember that being alone is better than bad company, because you're going to feel alone anyway. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, it would be awesome if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is Abuse City Code Enforcement Can't Control What They See. There's a problem neighbor who doesn't like a previously permitted gazebo on my property. It's really ironic because they have tons of issues on their property, including grading work that clearly looks like an engineer has never planned it, etc. When we first met, they told us the gazebo on our lands gotta go because it's too close to their house. Our setback is fine, but their house may also have a setback violation. We changed the topic. A few months later, a city inspector came up. We live rural, so they aren't expected. They looked at the gazebo for a bit and wanted me to give them a picture of it. What they didn't ask is how zoomed in the picture must be. I grabbed one of those sub 250 gram drones, flew it high enough so their entire property happened to be in view while staying on my property, and snapped a picture. They actually had the ball to come up to me and say I called them in. I cheerily told them that I'm a new homeowner and an inspector came in. I thanked them for making sure our property is safe and sound and told them I took a very wide-angle picture to make sure the inspector can see our whole plot. They are still dealing with the violation. It's nice to hear a story for a change where the problem neighbor ends up getting caught up in their own red tape, especially like seemingly so soon into it. Like, I'm glad this wasn't like some drawn out revenge that came after years of being tortured and poked and prodded by your annoying neighbor. OP got him stuck on the first one. Impression Regular 896 wrote, "Of all the things I could be doing instead, I can't imagine worrying about someone else's property." Yeah, I'm the guy that told the realtor, "No HOA," before giving her my name. Anyway, I'm lucky. I've not caught code enforcement snooping around here since before COVID. Just mowing several times a year and using the trash cans seems to work. OP responded saying, "We don't have HOA, but people up here abuse code enforcement." Drunken Honky added, "Place next to where I work just started an expansion of their parking lot. Dude I work with was complaining that when it rains, all that rain is now going to go into our completely asphalted lot instead of their grassy lot, so he called code enforcement to see if they had a permit, and I haven't seen the workers back over there. I don't understand some people." This next story is, want to make a racist school project? Fine. Enjoy social shunning? So I went to a small high school, and freshman year there was this kid, let's call him Drew, small stature, white, blonde, and stupid, idolized Andrew Tate. Now you know where I'm going with this. The class had to present a project individually about what they wanted to be when they grow up. I went with engineering. He did the worst possible thing he could have done. Let's start with the background. He filmed in his room, and on the wall, first thing we see is the German World War II soldier flag. Like I mentioned before, white, blonde kid, not at all Buddhist, no reason to have a flag with that certain shape on it. That was bad, but the next part was worse. He uttered the words, "I want to be a phone scammer." He proceeds to put on an Indian accent and pretends to scam someone on the phone. Everyone in the room was half laughing because it was ridiculous and half wondering if he was serious. Well, we found out which it was soon enough. Well, next thing I know, he's going off on me because I sit with him, not by choice. He called me an NPC. I assume because he couldn't find a way to discriminate against me because I'm also white. So anyway, he keeps being racist, and at one point, my class agreed that we would sacrifice him if there was a school shooter. We eventually started talking crap about him to his face. The whole school stopped talking to him, except a few who barely tolerated him. At one point, he asked me if I could help him with homework. Well, I saw my chance. I gave him all the wrong answers, and he believed me. He left the school after the first semester for bullying, which he started. We had a huge celebration. He's still the butt of many jokes to this day, and he's now a cautionary tale to the freshmen every year. I mean, by the time you get to freshman year, you do have some small smidgen of your self-consciousness, but I just hear the story and I think, what was his living situation like? How could his guardians or parents actually have treated him and raised him for him to end up like that? Brief Infinity 344 wrote, "Unfortunately, sacrifice him if there was a school shooter is a very real possibility." Our next story is, told on my tech lead even after we had mended our relationship. I work in product management and had been having issues with my tech lead for over 4 months. General tardiness, not showing up for meetings, or answering questions over Slack. I had escalated it to my manager, but nothing was done about it. So I stopped caring and just got on to doing engineering coordination as well as with other teams. Last week, there was a miscommunication between me and other engineering team, and they all ganged up against me and went and complained to my manager as how I wasn't being collaborative and was difficult to work with. This week, I had a chat with my tech lead and we cleared all the miscommunications, and he promised that he would fix his tardiness and take up his role seriously, and I agreed to step back from any involvement in engineering activities. Today, he once again didn't show up for our meeting and didn't even bother informing, so I went and told my boss, wondering if I got petty too soon, or should I have waited for some more infractions. My view is that because no one was calling him out for his general tardiness, he thought getting friendly with me would now let me oversee his tardiness once again. I mean, where is any kind of accountability coming from the upper echelons of this workplace? OP stuck here having to ask whether or not they're right or wrong mentioning this to their boss. Well, how about whether or not their boss is wrong for not doing something or noticing this? Lord Fox 1987 wrote, "The manager should have dealt with it promptly once a pattern of behavior was established and put him on probation, period. If he didn't shape up, he should have been crap canned." OP added, "He's been in the company for more than a year already. His tardiness started just a few months back due to his personal issues. Am empathetic, but I can't let the work slide if his personal challenges are affecting his work. Not something for me to solve." Our next story is, "You made me the other woman? Wouldn't your mother like to know?" Hey there, I've had an awful weekend, but I'm pretty proud of how I've handled it. aside from all the crying. About 2 weeks ago, I matched up with this guy on Tinder. I'll call him Jake. Jake is funny, witty, sweet, and genuinely everything I was looking for. We end up talking over text for about a week until deciding to meet up for the first time at his place. Stupid, I know. We talk, drink a few beers, and are genuinely having a good time together. At some point, I go to the bathroom and see some female products on the counter and in the shower. When I asked, he tells me it's some things his ex left, and then proceeds to show me their last conversation to prove that he hasn't been talking to her. Then we start to cuddle and he keeps bringing up having sex. I tell him, like I've told him before, that I really want to see some kind of commitment before jumping into it. He then tells me that it's not an if we get together situation, it's a when we get together situation. Obviously, my heart soared at hearing this. I had told him about how in previous relationships I felt used, and that once I'd hooked up with him, I'm afraid he'll just never talk to me again. Jake reassures me he would never do that to me, and that he's never felt so comfortable talking to someone before, that he's never had it feel so easy and unforced. I told him I felt the same way. He looks at me and says, "I can see us going really far." Stupidly, I believed him, and we hooked up. The next morning, I noticed a pill bottle on the nightstand that has a girl's name on it, a book, and a couple of socks on the ground. He tells me it's his roommate's and that he understands why it looks a little odd. I let him explain himself. He says his roommate has a boyfriend, that they know each other from work and she needed a place to stay and he had an extra room, so it just made sense. I jokingly said, "Well, your mom didn't raise a cheater. If she did, I would tell her." I once again believed everything he said. We slept together again, then I left. Come to find out, him and his roommate were actually living together. He tells me he technically cheated on her, and he already told her everything. I reached out to the girl, ended up calling her and telling her everything. Apparently Jake told her he slept with me, but that I didn't spend the night and meant nothing. Obviously this was not the case. Then I remembered the little joke I told him about telling his mother, and his girlfriend simply loved that idea. I sent a draft of the text to her to double check that she was okay with me sending it, and I said, "Hi Jake's mom, you don't know me, and I'm so sorry for sending you this message. I haven't been involved with your son, Jake, for long, but I thought he was everything I was looking for. I'll spare the details of our relationship and all that, but it turns out that he was living with someone else that he was romantically involved with, which I didn't know." He then proceeded to lie to both me and girlfriend's name, make us both promises of having futures with him, and I'm sure this is not the man you raised him to be. She has not responded to that message, and honestly, I wouldn't either if I was the one with a son like that. To be fair, I had warned him, even though I was joking. Obviously, there are more details within this story, but out of respect for his girlfriend and myself, I'll leave those things out. All things considered, I've most certainly learned to trust my gut from now on. Cheers to stupidity and feeling used. Edit had a lot of questions as to why I told his mom after such a short time. Truly, it's because I made that joke, which was low-key a warning, and his girlfriend gave me permission and we both ended up messaging his mother. This boy truly wouldn't give a crap either way, and while it was petty, I was just delivering on an empty threat I'd made in passing, which he laughed off and said, "Nah, you wouldn't do that." When he told me about how he lied, he said that he was sorry and that adult choices have adult consequences. And they most certainly do. The mother's contact info came from Facebook, as he was more than comfortable with sharing almost any aspect of his life with me, other than his literal girlfriend. Also, guys, yes, I know I'm stupid and gullible. Believe me, I am well aware. Ignoring red flags for the possibility of being loved has most certainly blown up in my face. And I have no choice but to take this as a lesson. And while I wish the situation was rage bait or fake, it's simply not. This actually happened to me. This actually happened to his girlfriend, and the whole situation feels freaking awful. As long as somebody like this has an actual relationship with their own mom, I see this as a great way to get revenge on somebody like that. I don't even think you should be too concerned or hung up on the fact that it wasn't like more than necessarily a one-date fling. This is a way to kind of shame him on a super personal level and also potentially allow his mom to try to remind him, hey, respect women. Pristine Egg 3831 wrote, "I'm a bit scared for you that your brain told you he's everything you ever wanted. Unfortunately, there are some really bad people out there, but need to hone your red flag detectors. Edit, sorry, I just read the end. I never wanted to wait ages to hook up, and I never waited more than a few dates, but if you're looking for a husband, I think you'll really do have to wait. You know why? A user will get angry and try to trick or bribe you into hooking up. Husband material will show interest but respect you and not pester you. You need to be so careful, and not just about being used once. You can get into relationships over and over with people who won't marry you. I'm 40. I wanted to be married in my early 20s and kids soon after. I'm now 40-year-old female, unmarried with no kids. Part of that is due to not waiting. Whenever you get involved with someone, you're taking yourself off the market from seeing other people. The deeper you get with one person, even though you have some concerns, the more you feel attached and don't want to address the concerns. I hope things go well for you. I haven't learned a thing. Our next story is, this is my number now. Hopefully this fits here, but I figured it was worth a share. About 2 years ago, I changed my phone number, and since then, I've been getting millions of calls for some dude named Omar. I assume this was his number before and he didn't notify a good amount of people of the change. Some of those people include doctor's offices and his daughter's orthodontist. No matter how many times I tell these doctors I am not Omar, his wife, or his daughter, they still call telling me that Omar owes a significant amount for his daughter's braces. Now, I have no idea why the doctor's office doesn't ask Omar for his new number when he takes his daughter to get her braces checked, but I'm tired of it. On top of doctors and collections calling for Omar, I also get a lot of calls from his friends and family. I have also told the friends and family this is not Omar's number, but they still call, even though I've blocked so many of their numbers. Now I tell them that this is not Omar's number, and if they see Omar, to let him know that he needs to pay for his daughter's braces because he owes a lot of money and are getting ready to go after him. I haven't heard from the orthodontist in months. Freak you, Omar. I hope you do better by your daughter. I mean, honestly, what more can you do short of trying to change your number? Which, let's be real, once you already get a number, even if it's Omar's old number and you start kind of entrenching that in all of your social medias and your doctor's offices, for example, as you can see from Omar's example, it's a pain in the butt to have to go and change them and you're sure to forget some. Air his dirty laundry out until he finally deals with it. Hey, now stop it, you wrote. After almost 20 freaking years, I still get calls for Cassandra. I've gone off on so many of these people, some of them multiple times. I mean, it's been 20 years. I may steal OP's tactic and start telling the ones who still call me looking for her that she owes a lot of people a lot of money. One Satisfaction 8676 wrote, similar except some lady started giving out my number that I've had for over 25 years. I finally started telling them that she died in a scuba diving accident. Calls stopped after another couple of months. Our next story is The Sweet Sound of Silence. For the past few months, my neighbor's dog has been barking non-stop. It's a small, yappy thing that seems to have an endless supply of energy and noise. The barking would start early in the morning and continue late into the night, disturbing my peace and quiet. I tried talking to my neighbor about it, but he just shrugged and said, "Dogs bark. What can you do?" I was frustrated, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I bought a dog whistle online. For those who don't know, dog whistles produce a sound that dogs can hear, but humans can't. I started blowing the whistle every time the dog started barking. At first, it seemed confused, but after a few days, it started to get the message. Every time it barked, it would hear the whistle and stop. It took about a week, but the barking finally stopped. Now, whenever the dog starts to bark, I just blow the whistle and it quiets down. My neighbor had no idea why his dog suddenly became so well behaved, and I'm not planning on telling him anytime soon. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is the sound of silence. I think OP's just lucky that that dog whistle actually worked. I've seen and I've known some dogs that even if you had that dog whistle, they might stop for like a few seconds, do that head twisty thing like what is that? And then just go back to yapping endlessly. 8-Bit Trash wrote, now the power move is finding some way to use it in front of your neighbor without them knowing. Make them think their dog will listen to you, but not them. Our next story is, use my email to sign up, lose your account. I was driving home one evening, maybe 8:30 at night, and my phone chimed in my pocket. It was the generic notification. I figured I had a calendar reminder for something. I got home and checked my notifications to see an email from chess.com telling me, welcome to chess.com, and saying I could verify my account via the email. Given that I was driving and generally had no real interest in having another account for something, I figured someone was using my email address as a throwaway, so I logged in and realized the person who created the account was using it to farm up XP and levels. I'm not super clear on the leveling system in chess.com, but I assume more games won means more levels. They had their own account that they were playing against, so I changed the password and logged out of all devices. Now I have a chess.com account that I didn't sign up for, but I changed the name to something snarky and the profile picture to the aliens meme. I've never used it, but I'm not letting anyone else have it. I almost kind of hoped that this story was going to end with OP going on a chess elo adventure. Some kind of like ultimate revenge story where I found the other person's original account and I started playing on chess.com so much that I got better than them. I even went one-on-one with them and beat them. That's the ending I wanted to hear. PhD TARDIS wrote, "I have this happen all the time. My revenge is to delete the account when possible. Otherwise, I'll sign the person up for extra services. Last week, a startup boutique appeared to have purchased a WordPress storefront plugin and decided to test it out. My email is the name of a Disney character. I've had it over 20 years. The person testing out the plugin made a mock order using my email address. I replied and suggested that he or she use their own email rather than using other people's addresses. In the email, I pointed out that annoying people with their tests could result in each person reporting the email as phishing, and as such, make it difficult to get their business emails to the intended audience when they do open. Another time, someone used my email address for their burner phone. The cellular carrier wouldn't let me delete the account, even after explaining that I didn't sign up for it. My solution was to report the phone stolen. Have fun with your bricked phone, moron. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I Need So Much Sleep 170 wrote, "Someone used my email for their vet. So I would get reminder emails that Fluffy was booked for vaccinations and confirm if they're still coming. I canceled about 10 appointments on them before they worked it out." Our next story is neighbors. 3 years ago, the house behind me across the alley sold to a gentleman and his wife. The gentleman is a handy guy and said he was going to be trimming the trees in their new property gradually if we minded him using the garbage dumpster to throw away the smaller branches. No problem, just don't overfill it where we can't use it, and make sure not to leave the branches on my side of the alley that separates our property. For 3 years during the spring, summer, and fall time, we've had to deal with branches left on my side of the alley, the part that I have to maintain. I've just been disposing them of the dumpster like he should be. Today when I go to mow and maintain my section of the alley, it is filled with branches and tree clippings, to the point that I could not have put them all in the dumpster. His side of the alley was freshly mowed and looks very nice. Mine looked like someone should be calling code enforcement because of all of his tree trimmings. Cue the petty side of me. I stacked all the large branches up against his gate, then pulled every bit of the tree trimmings and smaller branches on those. Took me a good hour to get them all over there and positioned, stacked them in such a way that when the gates opened, they'll fall and block their access to the alley. They'll have to drive around to the backside to clean them up, or stack them all inside their yard to then get to the alley to dispose of them. Will be his choice. I've pointed one of my security cameras towards that area, so hopefully I can watch what he decides to do. I'm hoping that the gentleman has enough gall to come and ask me about them. This will happen on my property, if he would like to talk about it. I think what OP did was just the right thing to do. OP gave them permission to make things a little bit easier on them, and they're clearly just taking total advantage of OP. Turn around and throw that stuff that's honestly theirs right back onto their property, make it inconvenient for them. If they want to go and complain about trying to take advantage of your goodwill, I'd love to hear it. OpenBug4251 wrote, "We had a storm some weeks back and a tree branch landed on the neighbor's garage, plus a few in the yard. They hadn't actually moved in yet. It was a large enough storm that the city did free debris pickup the week after. You just had to set them on the curb. The grass along our curb is only about a foot wide, so their pile was stacked on the sidewalk. No issues there, as most of the neighbors had to do the same. However, there's always some debris left behind after the claw machine comes by. At this point, the neighbors still hadn't moved in, so I cleared most of the leftover debris from their sidewalk and threw it in my own compost bin, but I didn't touch the stuff that was in the yard. Another couple of weeks go by and they've moved in. They've mowed the yard once, and rather than pick up the rest of the storm debris, they pushed it onto the sidewalk. So now there's twigs all along the sidewalk in front of their house. I have a feeling that they think a magic fairy comes and picks them up or something, but I'm not cleaning them up again. I'm also not looking forward to the fall when they inevitably aren't going to clean up the leaves in their yard and they all end up on my driveway. Our next story is Revenge Potato After Tracking Tag Found. My kid's mother, my ex, is a control freak. We have shared care, weak about arrangements. She demands to know her daughter's every movement, texts constantly, checking up on her and a load of other overbearing nonsense. One of the reasons I left her also. My daughter is now well into her teens and fed up with the control. My ex tries to track her via various apps on my daughter's phone. However, my daughter is savvy enough to disable this when she wants. So we went camping for a week in the summer with my new partner and her kids. I told the ex exactly where we were camping and our planned travel route. My daughter had had enough of the control and texts and turned off her phone as we left for the trip. We had to detour a bit due to roadworks, and soon I got a text from the ex demanding to know where we were going and why our daughter wasn't responding. I was surprised she knew we were off track a bit. Once we get to camp, we go looking and sure enough, find an AirTag hidden in my daughter's bag. Both myself and my daughter were pretty unimpressed and almost dumped it in the garbage. Instead, we decided to have some fun. We were camping in a small town with a post office. We bought a large potato on which my daughter drew an angry face, put the AirTag and the potato inside a sealed post bag, and posted it to her mother. Over the next 6 days of camping, I received a series of increasingly agitated calls and texts from the ex about our whereabouts. She was freaking out as the tag traveled from our remote town through another state and slowly back to her address. A week goes by fast and we head home, drop the kids off to their mothers, and almost forgot about the package as it hadn't arrived apparently. A few days later, I get an excited call from my daughter who was grounded. The post bag had turned up at least a couple of weeks after sending. The potato had gone bad and turned to a foul-smelling mush in the bag that, upon opening, had spilled on the living room carpet, leaving a rotten mess with an AirTag in the middle. Even better, it was the ex who opened it. I wish I'd been there to see her face. Apparently, it was worth the grounding. The ex still tries to control and track my kids, but doesn't have much luck. Yeah, I just think in a relationship like that, you're gonna get to the point where you do become independent. And not only are you gonna make sure that she never knows where you are again, you may never want to talk to the person again, besides maybe like biannual updates. I know if it were me and I had a parent like that, I probably would not tolerate once I'm on my own this overbearing, controlling, "where are you? I need to know everything you're doing" behavior. Koigan wrote, "The kid is going to go no contact in a few years and mom will wonder why." Abby 1968 added, "Worst of all will be the self-justification mom will be thinking to herself, and mom really won't have any clue that it's her own behavior that drove her children away." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.